If you are new to League of Legends and looking for a strong champion to carry your games, that means you're at the right place and this video is for you. Today I'll be breaking down 2 champions for each role to help you guys figure out which champion suits you the most. The champions on the list are all simple and effective picks. They will teach you the important aspects of the role you're trying to learn. Mastering these skills will help you endlessly when you decide to try harder champions and carry over well into many aspects of the game as a whole. In this list we will go all the way from top down to bot lane, while I would only list those champions that I would choose myself if I had to start playing League from a scratch. I also wanted to diversify damage types of the champions I suggest, so we will have an example of an AD and an AP champion for each role. There is also a gift prepared for you guys somewhere in the video, so make sure to watch the video till the very end. Let's get started. Malphite, as known as Rock Solid, is here to begin our list. Why would you want to play Malphite top? Well, he has one of the best engages in the entire game. He hard counters a lot of top laners. He is a really great team fighter and he doesn't have any skill shots, which means that you can learn him extremely quickly. Not joking guys, 1 to 5 games based on how new you are to the game and you will get the grasp of how to play the laning phase, what his spells do and how to reset the auto attack with W. The main reasons why I found Malphite a great pick for the newer players is how simple it is to be effective on him. This simplicity doesn't mean that there aren't bigger lessons to be learned though. Malphite rewards players who can use his shield passive in order to get more favorable trades. Using the shield to soak up some of the more front-loaded damage from the enemy top laner makes the skirmishes more impactful and helps him to stay in the lane. Malphite Q is a point-and-click ability that does damage and then steals move speed upon impact. His W gives him passive armor and when activated it makes his auto attack deal cons of damage behind his target. These 2 abilities combined with his ease attack speed reduction on enemies lets him take very beneficial short-term fights without being punished too heavily. Malphite's the most important lesson for new top laners though is the understanding of proper use of his ultimate in combination with teleport. Malphite has an okay laning phase, but you also pick Malphite to crush teamfights and make plays on the map, not for his early game. Learning to keep your eyes on the other lanes and spot a right time for a TP play is essential for playing Malphite. An ult in the enemy backlane can often mean the difference between an ace or a baron. Some engages are straight, but Malphites are straighter. For items, I suggest you to follow this build path based on the enemy team composition. The only difference is your third item, and against AP champions you're supposed to go Force of Nature, while against an AD team it's better to go Frozen Heart. Olaf has been a very strong pick since the beginning of season 13. I'm pretty sure you guys are not surprised to see this one on the list, as this pick terrorizes players of all possible ranks and levels. The main reason why I added Olaf to this list is that he is fairly easy to learn, while he has only one skill that requires you to aim. Basically, Olaf gameplay works next way. You throw your axe to slow the enemy down. If you hit the target, gets slowed and its armor gets reduced, so you can try to force a 1v1 fight against them. Upon picking up an axe, the cooldown of Q reduced to 2.5 seconds, which resets the cooldown if that has already elapsed. His passive grants you extra lifesteal and attack speed the lower you are, which works perfectly when paired with his W, which grants extra attack speed once you use it, plus shield based on missing health. E spell does true damage and is a great skill, the cooldown of which is reduced by 3 seconds each time you do an auto attack. But the most important skill you need to know is Olaf ulti, as known as Ragnarok, which passively grants you bonus armor and MR, while makes Olaf enraged for 3 seconds and is prolonged for 2.5 seconds each time you hit an enemy with an auto attack or E. It also makes you immune to any crowd control effect, so no one can stop you while your movement speed is increased when you are chasing the enemy. Do you feel it already? Put all those spells together in one jar and you will get Olaf, the unstoppable Viking that destroys everything on its way and has no regrets. For item build, I suggest you to follow this path, which allows you to heal like a madman and survive any burst damage from the enemy team. But before we turn our focus to jungle role, let me inform you that I offer 1v1 coaching at metafy.gg/wildheart, and if you want affordable, good, in-depth 1v1 coaching today, go ahead and book a session with the link at the bio. Lastly, if you want a chance to win free coaching, be sure to comment down your Discord name and why you think you deserve it. I'll be picking out a person randomly. Other than that, enjoy the video. Nunu is an unmatched jungler in terms of beginner friendliness. His kit is centered around objective control, and his sustain and utility gives new players some pad while they find their way through the jungle. Being able to farm the jungle with Q that heals you can be pretty nice for beginners, as it lets them to focus less on their clear pass and jungle micro and more on whatever gank opportunities arise. Plus, using his W to literally snowball his lanes is pretty fun. Nunu's E lets him lock down targets so he can charge up his ult and deal a huge burst of damage. The biggest obstacle for many new junglers is the small heart attack that comes with the learning how to smite without getting things stolen from you. Fortunately for you, Nunu doesn't like sharing and stacking stacking his Q true damage with your smite makes you basically unmatchable in contesting objectives. Use this skill to practice counting your collective smite damage and pulling the trigger as close to that number as you can. The Yeti guy is a very simple pick to pilot, but also this beast is probably the best champion that can teach you how to play the game proactively, as there is no way you can be useful as Nunu if you are not forcing teamfights with your snowball or not getting objectives with your Q. For your item build, I suggest you to follow this one, which will allow you to be durable and can make you an unkillable target for the enemy team. Both of those item builds are efficient, and if you want to be a super tanky guy who will absorb all the damage for their team, just go Jack Show. But if you feel extra healing for your allies in teamfights is not a bad idea, Radiant Virtue is also a great option. Coming in as our second beginner-friendly jungle pick is Master Yi, the Buju Bladesman. Playing utility junglers is all well and good, but sometimes you have to put on your carry pants and drag your team to the enemy nexus, and only a few champions do that as well as Master Yi. While most jungle champions have some form of ganking ability that lets them dash over walls or CC enemy laners, Yi is well known for his insane damage potential and outstanding carry potential whenever he gets fed. Prior to that, Yi relies on just being able to look at a lane and identify the best angle of attack, whether that be from behind or through the lane bushes. Yi is generally a more farm heavy jungler, but if you can manage to get a few kills, you'll be almost unstoppable. His W gives him durability, and if you learn how to use it right, you can catch huge portions of burst damage with it. Also, his E grants you extra true damage whenever you auto attack, which lets you cut through enemies like butter. His Q, however, is most defining ability and holds most of his skill expression. Learning to identify enemy abilities is a crucial skill in League of Legends, especially for Master Yi. You deal a lot of damage, but you are still squishy, so using your Q and target ability to dodge enemy CC is vital. When you get to play Master Yi, just keep in mind that your champion is only effective if you have gold, so always try to prioritize safe plays and farming over risky ones and ganking. When it comes to selecting which items you need to build as Master Yi, I would suggest you one of those builds. First one is better against squishy targets, and the second one works perfectly against tanky ones. There really isn't a more perfect champion for new players than Annie. Every new player should put some time into Annie, as she is a champion that will easily allow you to improve the quickest. Of course, Annie W and R are skill shots, but they're insanely easy to land to the point that they shouldn't be really classified as skill shots. Farming is one of the most important fundamentals to learn when you're new to League of Legends, and Annie's Q is one of the best tools you can find to last hit minions, and is a massive help, as auto-in for last hit can be very difficult at first. Since you don't have to be as precise when using Q to last hit, it allows you to shift your focus on other elements like trading with the enemy when they are trying to last hit, or looking at the minimap on a consistent basis. You will less worried about what you need to accomplish mechanically with Annie, and can focus your efforts on learning macro, which actually makes you a better player. What I also like about Annie is that with all the AoE damage she has plus the stun, she can easily teach you how to be a proactive player and how to become the one who is initiating a fight, not just following the stream. There are plenty of builds you can go with Annie. The most common one is full magic pen, which works the best when you are the only magic damage dealer on your team. Another build that I personally like the most is Road of Ages or Liandry's Annie, with further transition to Riley's, which doesn't give you as much damage as the previous build when it comes to bursting the target. But team fighting and DPS in general becomes much more consistent, as T-burst will slow every single enemy nearby. Tristana is an OG ADC champion who became extremely popular for mid lane during the last 3 seasons and can be effectively used at both mid lane and ADC. Playing Tristana is fairly simple, but does have a few traps that are dangerous to fall into. On paper, Tristana is a solid marksman for inexperienced players who want to learn the ways of playing an ADC. Tristana doesn't rely on skill shots, but mainly on her auto attacks combined with explosive charge that can burst squishy champions and towers in mere seconds. The game plan for Tristana will usually be to take it slow before level 3 and start going aggressive once you have all 3 spells unlocked. There will be times where Tristana can safely jump in and secure kills early on, but be careful with that, since Tristana can easily end up in a pickle if using rocket jump too aggressively. As the game goes on, Tristana will only become stronger. Her range will rapidly increase through her draw a bit passive and make her able to fire safely from literally any position you choose, while you outrange almost everyone. If getting caught or targeted by a flank, use rocket jump combined with her buster shot to safely reposition and continue the damage output. For combos, Tristana wants to throw explosive charge onto her target and then start firing away with rapid fire, pumping up the attack speed. After just 4 auto attacks, Tristana will trigger the explosive charge and deal a nice chunk of burst damage. I want to tell you one more time to make sure you don't forget that using your E on the turrets makes it an extremely easy target for you, which makes Tristana one of the best turret demolishers in the entire game. When it comes to selecting items for Tristana, I recommend this build as it's the most consistent one judging from the stats and win rates Tristana has. You can also convert Blood Sorcerer to Lord Dominic's regards if the enemy team is tanky. Kicking off our bot lane section is Caitlyn. She's currently a champion who is absolutely dominating the bottom bottom lane. Aside from her various properties that will help you develop great fundamentals, Caitlyn is such a powerful pick right now. You can definitely pick her, learn her quickly, and expect to see results without even learning anything else in no time. Aside from her gameplay, I have a lot to talk about with her specifically, because she is easily the best marksman to learn many fundamental concepts with. What's the most iconic about Caitlyn is her inherent range advantage over so many of her opponents. 650 range is a pretty big deal, and if you're not taking advantage of this, you're playing Caitlyn wrong. Playing Caitlyn gives you a perfect opportunity to practice something called auto-spacing. It's a very vague term, but basically it means continuously repositioning yourself for the most optimal effect. Sometimes this means you will want to move backwards in between autos, and other times it means you will want to space yourself aggressively. This is one of the more advanced concepts in terms of spacing, but with enough practice you will definitely be able to get there. It's honestly something that many great players don't even think about, they just do it instinctively. In terms of her other strengths, Caitlyn is excellent at pushing waves. Being able to take lane priority is a fundamental concept that every player needs to understand. With her ability to push waves, Caitlyn is able to pressure the turret and also dictate the flow of the wave in nearly every matchup. Acting on this consistently teaches you the value of wave manipulation. If expressions like wave management, wave control, or wave manipulation don't mean anything to you, make sure to check our video so you understand how those concepts work and level up your game knowledge right away. To optimally push or freeze, you can build leads through simply out-farming your opponent or taking turret plating. You will also be able to use your lane priority to apply pressure onto dragons, since your opponents will be stuck in lane due to your pressure. There's always something you can practice as Caitlyn, whether it's spacing or setting up traps. You also learn to be adaptable in your trade patterns. You can't always be moving forward and constantly auto-attacking in the way that champions like Draven can. Instead, there are many times when you will have to use your net to disengage, take a bursty trade, and force your opponent to back off. It's definitely helpful for your own development as a player to not stick to one playstyle every time. You want to expose yourself to many different situations, so you can learn to adapt to each one of them. When it comes to deciding what items you need to pick as Caitlyn, I would go those items without a doubt. Consistent DPS, high crit ratio, high attack damage numbers is all you want. Bloodthirster and Gale Force will also help you to survive assassins on any potential threat from the enemy team. Seraphine has a very mage-like kit. She plays almost exactly as an enchanter would. She loves grouping with her team. Remember, she gets more passive nodes by having more allies around her. Just being near your teammates give her a ton more damage. Her ultimate and E are also incredibly deadly at enabling her team, and she is also able to consistently root targets with her E off of her own teammates CC. It's not even that she is only good at a full-blown teamfight. Fighting either just one or two teammates is more than enough to enable Seraphine to pop off. She really just needs someone to stand in front of her in order to make the most use of her key. All this means is that if you're a lone wolf type of player, Seraphine likely wouldn't be for you. It's not that she can't be on her own, but she's relatively vulnerable without teammates around her. The damage she does isn't threatening enough to scare people from killing her, and she's very squishy if enemies manage to get on top of her, which brings us to a very important point: what her main role will be. She can either play ADC, support, or mid lane, but I do think she will definitely favor the ADC role. Her builds are fairly simple. We're looking to get as much ability haste and ability power combined as possible. Liandry build is the most common one you want to go for, especially against durable targets. Rod of Ages is a better choice if enemy team doesn't really have tanky targets and you want to outlast anyone when it comes to team fighting. Nautilus is an extremely durable tank with huge amounts of survivability and CC options, which is known for his exceptional ability to chain control one target. He can easily initiate a fight and target specific champions during the fight to lock them down. Nautilus has a large variety of abilities that offer a lot in teamfights. He specializes in initiating teamfights, locking down the enemies, and staying in the fight for a long time. Nautilus in teamfights should always initiate with Q and auto attack to proc the passive route. This keeps the target locked down for a while for your team to poke or kill them quickly. Secondly, hit them with your E and keep your W up to survive during the fight. Out the enemy backlane or a large clump to knock up everyone in the area. Your team should have enough damage output by then to kill most of the team. In teamfights, just keep on using E spell and maintain your CC and distribute it throughout. Remember to just rely on your team, be the front lane that initiates and CCs the enemy team. Nautilus is a great choice for heavy CC, slows, and other forms of initiation. He provides a lot for a team and can be a pain to deal with. He's a champion that heavily relies on his team to follow up and be on the same page with. Playing Nautilus is a great pick for teamfights and should be used accordingly. Just remember, Nautilus is a huge titan in heavy armor with a large ankle. hardcore. You should be intimidating and be willing to drag them down to the depths. When it comes to item build, I recommend you these items as they are the most optimal. Ziggs can easily be converted into an item that will provide you extra durability against an enemy team like Frozen Heart or Force of Nature. It was really difficult to find support who can deal 80 damage, as we only have 4 champions in the game whose damage type is 80 and are considered as somewhat traditional supports. Nevertheless, we have Senna the Redeemer. This champion is extremely fun to play as support. If you get paired with Caitlyn, there are literally no bot lanes who can outrange you. Senna is one of the strongest late game champions in League of Legends, as you can collect rays infinitely, so technically your scaling never ends. While her range is great, she pays an extremely high price for it. She's fairly squishy, and once the enemy team finds you off guard, you might get killed in a split second. During the laning phase, try to position yourself that way that you can hit both enemy champions and your ADC with your Q, as if you hit your ally, you heal them. Another trick that you might find useful once picking Senna is that you can use wards to attack enemies that are out of your regular auto attack range. Simply saying, if you need to execute a low HP enemy champion, drop a ward that way that the trajectory will be linked towards an enemy. All in all, Senna's abilities make her laning phase so safe for her and her ally in the bottom lane. Senna is able to gather souls and her ally is able to farm up minions for gold. They both make it nearly impossible for their counterparts to lane. Senna and her ally get a lead in the bottom lane that they can then translate it into helping others or carrying teamfights later. When it comes to item selection, I suggest you to follow one of those options. Umbra Glaive as a core is really great buy if you are playing against the champions who rely on the invisible traps like Shaco's boxes or Teemos shrooms. If you want to be a 1v9 damage dealing machine, I suggest you to follow the second build. Keep in mind that if your lane was fairly easy and you collected a decent amount of rays, so your crit chance is already 20% or more, feel free to get Infinity Edge second to empower your crit damage. That's it for now, friends. Hope the video wasn't too long for ya, but I wanted to make sure I bring in as much valuable information as I can. Don't forget to participate in the coaching giveaway I mentioned earlier in the video if you want to become the best version of yourself in League. See ya later.